Jordan Mitchell liked this stretch of evening best, the sliver of time after practice when the air cooled and the streetlights flicked on one by one, like someone was laying a soft path of stars to his doorstep. He dribbled an invisible ball as he walked, backpack bouncing against his shoulder, breath still warm from wind sprints. The gym at Roosevelt High had smelled like liniment and rubber and hard work, and he carried a piece of that glow into the night. He didn't need much to be happy. A pair of worn-out sneakers, a playlist that started low and got better with every block, a text from his best friend Malik. "Coach is gonna start you Friday. Don't choke, superstar." To which Jordan replied with 3 laughing emojis and a thumbs up. He grinned at the screen, then slid the phone back in his pocket. The headphones stayed around his neck instead of on his ears. His dad had drilled that into him. Awareness is respect for yourself and everyone around you. So Jordan listened to the neighborhood breathe, the sprinkler ticking in lazy arcs, the distant hiss of a bus, a dog barking like it had opinions about everything. Porch lights glowed in familiar windows. Miss Evelyn watered her garden even though it never seemed to need it. She looked up and waved the hose like a baton. "Evening, Jay." "Evening, Miss Evelyn," he called back. "Tomatoes are winning." "They always do," she said, pleased. 3 blocks to home, past the corner store with the buzzing sign that read Grok Rye like it had swallowed a letter and was still deciding how to burp it up. Past the barber shop where Mr. Leon gave out free advice with every fade. Past the little pocket park where dads pushed strollers and teenagers pretended not to notice one another. The sky was a deep, rinsed blue. The first star was out. You could forget the world had sharp edges on a night like this. Jordan thumbed a text to his mom. "Leaving gym now. Be there in 10. The dots appeared, then her reply. "Want tacos?" He typed back. "Always." A second later came her follow-up. "Dad late tonight. Big case." It wasn't unusual. When his father said late, he meant late, the kind that came with a second pot of coffee and a promise to catch the next one, champ. Federal law enforcement sounded glamorous when people said it fast, like in a TV trailer, but mostly it meant paperwork and patience and corners of the world you never saw unless people did the wrong thing. Jordan was proud anyway. He didn't brag about it at school. That wasn't his style. But when someone asked what his dad did, he'd say, "He's in federal investigations," and leave it there, the way his father liked. Not a secret exactly, just none of anyone's business. The badge stayed in a locked drawer at home. The stories stayed in his father's eyes. He passed the park and slowed to return a ball a little kid had launched toward the sidewalk. "My bad!" the boy cried. Jordan laughed, toe-tapped the ball up to his hands, and sent it back on a neat bounce pass. "Keep your elbow in. You'll be raining threes by August." "Like you?" the kid asked. "Exactly like me," Jordan said, and kept walking. He was 2 streets from his block when the hush shifted. Not by much, just enough to put a wrinkle in the air. The low hum of an engine rolled up behind him, slower than traffic, deliberate in a way that made the hairs at the base of his neck notice. He didn't turn. He didn't speed up either. He let the rhythm of his steps stay the same. Awareness is respect. Tires whispered to a stop at the curb ahead. A patrol car settled under a streetlight, the reflective stripe catching a pale ribbon of glow. The driver's window stayed up. Jordan's heartbeat nudged faster, but he focused on his breath. 4 counts in, 6 out. Walking home was not a crime. Being 17 was not a crime. Carrying a backpack was not a crime. He knew these things the way he knew his own name. He reached the intersection and tapped the crosswalk button. The world went very quiet while he waited. The patrol car's engine ticked. Somewhere, a TV laughed through a thin apartment wall. His phone buzzed again. Malik this time. "You still down for film study?" Coach posted clips. Jordan's thumb hovered over the screen. The patrol car's door opened with a soft mechanical sigh. A man stepped out, uniform creased hard enough to slice bread. He adjusted his belt with the practiced tug of someone who did it 100 times a day and looked at Jordan the way you look at a smudge on a window you didn't expect to find. The name tag glinted under the streetlight. Daniels. Jordan swallowed, felt the dry click of it, and slid his phone back into his pocket. The crosswalk sign blinked to walk, the little white figure stepping forward like a dare. "Evening," Jordan said, voice steady, the way his father had taught him. Polite is power. Officer Daniels didn't say evening back. He glanced at the backpack, then at Jordan's face, then at the quiet block that had suddenly become a stage. His hand settled on his duty belt, fingers tapping near the radio mic, like a thought he hadn't decided to think yet. "Where are you headed?" Daniels asked. "Home," Jordan said. 2 streets over. "You live around here?" "Yes, sir." The officer's eyes didn't soften. They measured, weighed, sorted, Jordan thought, and the word felt colder than the air. He kept his hands visible, thumbs hooked under the straps of his backpack so they wouldn't wander. 4 in, 6 out. "ID?" Daniels said. "I'm 17, Jordan replied. "Don't have a license yet. I've got my school ID in my wallet. If it's okay, I can get it out slowly." The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was heavy, the kind that made the night feel 1 degree tighter, like someone had cinched it with a belt. "Slowly," the officer said. Jordan nodded once. He moved the way you move when you're balancing water to the brim. Deliberate, careful, not because you're guilty, but because you know how quickly things spill. He reached for his wallet, thinking of tacos, of Friday's game, of the first star above the barber shop. He thought of his father's voice, steady and sure. "Awareness is respect. Respect is how you get home." He drew the wallet out, and the neighborhood held its breath. Jordan held the wallet out, the leather scuffed from years of use, his school ID peeking through the plastic slot. Officer Daniels didn't take it right away. Instead, he let his flashlight beam linger on Jordan's face as though he was memorizing every line, every twitch. The silence dragged, and with it came the weight of suspicion that Jordan hadn't earned. "Step away from the curb," Daniels said finally, voice flat but edged. Jordan obeyed, moving 2 steps back toward the sidewalk. His backpack jostled on his shoulder. Daniel's eyes darted to the movement like a predator catching motion in the grass. "What's in the bag?" "Books, basketball shoes. Just came from practice," Jordan answered, voice polite, careful. Daniels didn't look convinced. He tugged at his belt again, the holster glinting under the streetlight. "Mind if I take a look?" Jordan hesitated. He knew his rights. His dad had made sure of it. He also knew what refusing looked like to officers who already saw him as guilty. His throat tightened. "It's just school stuff, sir. Nothing else." That wasn't the question. Daniels stepped closer, his boots loud on the pavement. "You hiding something?" Jordan shook his head. "No, sir." The officer smirked, the kind of expression that wasn't humor but satisfaction at seeing discomfort bloom. "Then you shouldn't mind me checking." Jordan glanced around. A porch light flicked on across the street. An older man in slippers stepped out, phone in hand. Another neighbor peered through blinds, the glow of their television washing their face pale. Jordan felt heat rise in his cheeks. He didn't want an audience, but at the same time, he knew he might need them. Daniels reached for the strap of the backpack. Instinctively, Jordan shifted it back on his shoulder. The move was small, automatic, defensive only in the way anyone would protect their belongings. But Daniels reacted as though it were a challenge. "Don't pull away from me!" His voice boomed through the quiet block, sharp enough to slice the night. "I wasn't, sir," Jordan said quickly, heart pounding. "I just—" "Hands off the bag." Now Jordan raised both palms. "Yes, sir." The officer yanked the bag off his shoulder and dropped it to the hood of the patrol car. Unzipping it with a flourish, he pulled out the contents one by one. A pair of worn Nike sneakers, a math textbook, a spiral notebook with the corner bent, a half-empty bottle of Gatorade. He lined them up as though they were evidence of a crime. "This what you call suspicious?" Jordan asked before he could stop himself. The words slipped out softer than he intended, but Daniel's head snapped toward him anyway. "What did you say?" Jordan's chest tightened. "I just meant, it's all school stuff." "Nothing wrong here," Daniel's lips curled. "Watch your tone, boy. You don't tell me what's wrong or right. I decide that the word boy hit harder than the cold air. Jordan swallowed it down, his father's advice echoing in his head. Stay calm. Don't let them bait you. Make it home. Daniels leaned closer, invading the small space Jordan had left. You out here this late for a reason? Hanging with the wrong crowd? Looking for trouble? No, sir. Just walking home. My house is 2 streets over. Yeah? Daniels scoffed. Funny how everybody's always just walking home. You think I haven't heard that before? Jordan kept his eyes level, though inside his pulse raced. The officer wanted him rattled, wanted him small. He couldn't give him that satisfaction. ID says you're Roosevelt High, huh? Daniels sneered, finally snatching the school card out of Jordan's wallet. 17. You know what that means? Juvenile hall if you mess up. You like the sound of that? Jordan shook his head. No, sir. Then maybe you ought to remember who's in charge here. Daniels pushed the ID back against Jordan's chest, harder than necessary. The plastic edge scraped his collarbone. Jordan caught it before it fell, pressing it back into his wallet with steady fingers. He wanted to say something, wanted to defend himself, but he also knew silence sometimes spoke louder than words. The officer zipped the backpack with a snap, tossed it roughly back at him. Pick it up. Jordan slung it back over his shoulder, careful not to make it look defiant. Yes, sir. But the tension hadn't eased. If anything, it had thickened. The kind of fog that tells you the storm hasn't even begun yet. Daniel's eyes lingered on him, cold and assessing, like he was still deciding what to do next. And Jordan knew. This wasn't over. The backpack settled heavy on Jordan's shoulder again, but not heavier than the tension that clung to the night air. Daniel circled him slowly, like a shark sizing up its prey. The officer's boots crunched against the grit of the pavement, deliberate, echoing louder than they should have on such a quiet street. Jordan adjusted his grip on the strap. His fingers wanted to fidget, but he forced them still. He thought of his father's steady voice. Keep calm. Make it home. You win by walking away, not by shouting back. Hands out of your pockets! Daniels barked suddenly, though Jordan's hands weren't even in them. Jordan lifted his palms in front of him. They're out, sir. Don't get smart. You think you're slick? Daniel's tone sharpened with each word, more accusation than question. Jordan's throat tightened. No, sir. I'm just heading home. Heading home, Daniels repeated mockingly. That what they call it now? You out here casing houses? Selling something you shouldn't be? The words burned. Jordan wanted to protest, to defend himself, but he knew it wouldn't matter. This wasn't about truth, it was about power. Daniel suddenly stepped closer, the flashlight beam slicing across Jordan's face. Turn around! Hands on the hood, Jordan froze. Sir, I didn't… On the hood! Now! The officer's voice cracked through the night, loud enough that 2 more porches lit up, neighbors leaning out to see. Jordan moved, slowly, deliberately, placing both palms flat on the cool metal of the patrol car's hood. His reflection stared back at him in the faint gloss of the paint, eyes wide, jaw tight. Daniels patted him down roughly, hands pressing harder than necessary against shoulders, arms, sides. Empty your pockets. Jordan turned his head slightly. It's just my phone and a few dollars. Then take it out. Jordan obeyed, placing his phone and a crumpled $5 bill on the hood. Daniel snatched them up like contraband, examined them briefly, then dropped them back down. Thought so, Daniels muttered. Kid like you, out this late. It's never just books and sneakers. Jordan clenched his teeth, the insult digging deep. That's all it is, sir. Don't talk back! Daniels shoved his shoulder, hard enough to jar him against the hood. A collective gasp rippled from the small crowd that had gathered. Someone shouted, Hey, that's unnecessary! Another voice, younger, yelled, I'm recording this! Daniel's head whipped toward the voices, his expression darkening. Mind your business, he barked at the bystanders. Jordan saw his chance to speak, voice trembling but clear. Please, sir. I didn't do anything. My house is right up the block. My dad… What about your dad? Daniels cut in, venom dripping from his tone. You think dropping Daddy's name makes you untouchable? Jordan swallowed hard. I'm just saying, you can call him. He'll clear this up, Daniels sneered, pressing a firm hand against Jordan's back. Yeah, I'm sure he'll clear a lot up from behind bars. The officer shoved again, harder this time, until Jordan stumbled forward, catching himself on the hood. Pain shot through his wrist where it met the metal. Stop resisting, Daniels shouted, though Jordan wasn't resisting at all. I'm not, Jordan cried. I'm not resisting. The crowd was louder now, anger growing. Phones raised higher, voices shouting things like, "That's enough!" and "He's a kid!" A woman's voice rang sharp. "You're on camera, officer! We see everything!" But Daniels seemed fueled by the attention. His chest puffed, his grip on Jordan's arm tightening as he yanked him around. The metal clink of handcuffs echoed as he snapped one wrist into cold steel. Jordan winced, heart hammering. "Please, I didn't do anything." "You like mouthing off, huh?" Daniels growled, voice low and cruel now. "Bet you won't feel so tough in a cell." "I'm not mouthing off," Jordan gasped. "I'm just trying to get home. Please call my dad." Daniels pressed his knee harder into his back, ignoring the plea. The crowd was shouting full-throated now. A man bellowed, "You're hurting him! He's a kid!" Another yelled, "Get off him!" But Daniels didn't ease up. His voice was iron. "One more word out of you and you'll wish you stayed quiet." Jordan squeezed his eyes shut, fear and humiliation surging in equal waves. His father's lessons of restraint, of calm, were all he had left. But even calm couldn't stop the weight crushing his chest, the indignity of being forced down in front of his own neighbors like a criminal. And in the back of his mind, one thought screamed louder than the pain. "Dad, please get here. Please." The asphalt scraped against Jordan's cheek as Officer Daniels pressed him harder into the ground. The weight of the officer's knee dug into his back, forcing the breath out of his lungs in short, panicked bursts. Jordan's arms were twisted awkwardly behind him, one wrist already bound in cold steel, the other stretched out as Daniels fumbled with the second cuff. "I didn't do anything," Jordan gasped, voice muffled against the pavement. His chest ached with each breath. "Please, just call my dad," Daniels sneered, the sound sharp above the shouts of the growing crowd. "Oh, your daddy gonna come save you? What's he gonna do, write me a letter? Cry to the mayor?" He leaned his weight further onto the teenager's back, ignoring the obvious pain in his voice. "I'm not resisting," Jordan shouted desperately, straining to make his words clear to the people watching. "Please, I'm not resisting," a woman across the street cried out. "He's just a boy. Get off him." Another neighbor yelled, "You're choking him. Let him up." Phones pointed in every direction now, their cameras catching the scene from every angle. The buzz of voices merged into one angry roar. The neighborhood no longer silent but pulsing with outrage. Still, Daniels seemed fueled by it. His jaw clenched tight, his grip unyielding. "Quiet down," he barked at Jordan, jerking his arm higher until the boy winced in pain. "You brought this on yourself." "No, I didn't," Jordan cried, his voice cracked with both fear and fury. "I was just walking home." The officer lowered his face close to Jordan's ear, voice low and venomous. "Boys like you always have an excuse, always got a story. You think anybody's gonna believe you over me?" The words cut deeper than the handcuffs. Jordan's heart thudded in his chest, his vision blurring at the edges. He thought of his mother waiting at home with tacos, of his dad's steady eyes across the dinner table. He thought of all the talks about staying calm, staying alive. He was trying, but what good was calm if the truth didn't matter? "Dad!" he shouted again, his voice breaking as the last cuff snapped shut around his wrist. "Somebody call my dad!" Daniels yanked him up by the arms, the metal biting into his skin, and shoved him against the patrol car. The impact rattled through Jordan's bones. He winced, teeth clenched, but stayed on his feet. The officer wanted him broken, and he refused to give him that. "You like attention?" Daniels snarled, turning to glare at the crowd. "Look at you now. Your whole neighborhood watching you get hauled in. Big man, huh?" "He didn't do anything!" a teenager shouted from the curb. "We saw the whole thing!" "Shut up and go home!" Daniels barked, but the command only earned louder protests. Jordan, chest heaving, lifted his chin despite the cuffs. His voice cracked, but it carried. "You can record all you want. He's gonna regret this when my dad gets here." Daniels' expression twisted. He shoved Jordan again against the hood, sneering. "Oh yeah? And what's Daddy gonna do? He a lawyer? A preacher? Gonna beg me for mercy?" Jordan's reply came through gritted teeth. "He's FBI." The words hit like a crack of thunder. The crowd gasped, phones zooming in closer, whispers rippling through the night. Daniels froze for the briefest moment, eyes narrowing as though deciding whether to laugh or rage. FBI, huh? He said finally, the smirk twitching at the corner of his mouth. We'll see about that. But in his tone, buried under the bravado, there was the faintest edge of doubt, and Jordan, though trembling, clung to that single shift in the air. His father would come. He had to. Miles away, in a federal field office tucked between two anonymous glass buildings, Special Agent Marcus Mitchell was finishing his day. His desk lamp cast a yellow glow across neatly stacked files, each folder marked with case numbers, dates, and clipped notes. It had been another long shift. Interviews, paperwork, piecing together the threads of an ongoing investigation. For years, Marcus had worked in counterintelligence, the kind of job that demanded attention to detail and nerves of steel. He loosened his tie and rubbed the bridge of his nose. The office was quiet now, most of his colleagues already gone. He thought of Melissa and Jordan at home. His wife had texted earlier, "Tacos tonight." That thought made him smile faintly. Jordan would be walking back from basketball practice by now. Just as he reached for his jacket, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the caller ID. Evelyn Carter, a neighbor 2 streets over. It was unusual. She rarely called unless something mattered. He answered at once. "Mrs. Carter?" Her voice was frantic. "Marcus, you need to come quick. They've got Jordan. An officer's got him cuffed out on Maple Street. He's pushing him around." The words hit him like a sledgehammer. Marcus straightened in his chair, every muscle tightening. "What do you mean, they've got him? Who?" "The police. Officer Daniels, I think. He's got him on the ground. People are filming, but Marcus, it looks bad." Marcus was already on his feet, snatching his badge and keys. His voice dropped into the low, commanding tone he used in interrogation rooms. "Stay there. Keep your phone on. I'm on my way." He ended the call and strode toward the garage. His heart pounded faster with every step. The rational, analytical part of him tried to surface, assess, plan, proceed carefully. But it was drowned by the pounding fear of a father who knew what power in the wrong hands could do. In the garage, he slid into his black bureau-issued sedan, slammed the door, and started the engine. The tires squealed as he tore out of the lot. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and street lamps, every red light a torment, every slow car ahead an obstacle. He flipped on his dashboard strobe, an unmarked vehicle, but the blue flash was unmistakable. As the car surged forward, Marcus gripped the wheel tight, thoughts spiraling. He had taught Jordan everything. How to stay calm, how to speak respectfully, how to keep his hands visible. He had drilled into him that awareness wasn't paranoia, it was survival. He had prayed his son would never need those lessons. Now his worst fear was unfolding. He pictured Jordan on the ground, handcuffed, humiliated. He thought of the officer, Daniels, Evelyn had said. Marcus knew the name. Rumors had swirled in community circles, whispers about Daniels' short temper, his targeting of young black men under flimsy pretenses. Nothing had ever stuck enough for formal complaints to take him down. But tonight, Daniels had picked the wrong family. Marcus's phone buzzed again on the passenger seat. He hit speaker. "Talk to me." Mrs. Carter's voice came through, breathless. "Marcus, he's still got him pinned. The boy's yelling for you. Everyone's out here recording." "Is he hurt?" Marcus demanded. "I can't tell, but he's scared. He keeps saying your name." Marcus's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "I'll be there in 3 minutes. Don't let anyone leave. Keep those cameras rolling." The call ended. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, his own, echoing back from nearby buildings. The city seemed both endless and too small for what was happening. As he turned onto Maple Street, his chest tightened. Ahead, the flashing red and blue lights of a squad car cut through the night. A knot of neighbors clustered on the sidewalk, phones glowing like fireflies. Shouts carried on the wind. Angry. Urgent. Marcus slammed the gear into park and was out of the car before the engine even settled. He strode forward, badge in hand, eyes locked on the scene. And there it was. His son, cuffed and bent over the hood of a patrol car, face twisted in pain. Officer Daniels looming above him with one hand pressing him down. The sight seared itself into Marcus's mind in an instant. Every fiber of him screamed to tear the man away, to throw him against the concrete. But discipline, honed over decades, channeled that fury into something sharper. The crowd fell into a hush as Marcus approached. His voice, low and thunderous, rolled across the scene. "Get your hands off my son!" Daniels glanced up, startled by the authority in his tone. His eyes flicked to the badge Marcus held out, glinting under the streetlight. FBI Special Agent Marcus Mitchell. The officer froze, his bravado flickering. The weight of realization was just beginning to set in, and the crowd, sensing the shift, pressed in closer, their phones trained steady, waiting for the storm to break. The crowd parted instinctively as Marcus Mitchell strode forward, his badge gleaming under the harsh streetlight. Every step carried the weight of authority, but more than that, it carried the urgency of a father whose son was in danger. Officer Daniels still had one hand pressed on Jordan's back, pinning him against the hood of the cruiser. His other hand hovered near his holster, a twitch away from escalation. He turned his head just enough to size up the man approaching, irritation already curling across his features. "Step back, sir," Daniels snapped, his voice sharp, brittle with tension. "This is police business." Marcus stopped just a few feet away, his expression stone. He held the badge up higher, his voice cutting through the night like a blade. "This is my son, and I'm Special Agent Marcus Mitchell, FBI. You will take your hands off him, now." The murmurs from the crowd swelled, disbelief rippling through them like a shockwave. "FBI?" someone whispered. Another voice rose louder. "That's his dad! He's FBI?" Phones zoomed in, capturing every detail. The badge, the fury in Marcus's eyes, the sudden falter in Daniels' posture. Daniels tried to recover his authority, though the shift in the air was undeniable. "Sir, with respect, I don't care who you are. Your kid was acting suspicious. I had probable cause to detain him." Marcus stepped closer, his face inches from the officer's. His voice dropped low, dangerous. "Suspicious? Walking home from basketball practice with a backpack is suspicious? You've got half the neighborhood here as witnesses, and every one of them knows exactly what this is." The crowd erupted in agreement. Shouts of "Exactly!" and "He didn't do anything!" rang out. Daniel's jaw clenched. He glanced nervously at the phones recording from all sides, the thin veneer of control slipping with every second. Jordan lifted his head slightly, wincing against the pressure of Daniel's hand. "Dad," he managed, voice strained. Marcus's gaze softened for the briefest moment as he met his son's eyes. "You're all right, son. I've got you." Then he turned back to Daniels, his expression hardening into steel. "Release him! Now!" Daniels's hand twitched. He looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, pride warring with the instinct of self-preservation. For a long second he didn't move. Marcus leaned in closer, his voice calm but lethal. "I've buried colleagues who fought to protect this country. I've sat across from men who thought they were untouchable. And I promise you, officer, you don't want to learn tonight which one of those categories you belong to." The silence was electric. Daniel's hand slowly, reluctantly lifted from Jordan's back. The boy sagged against the hood, finally able to draw a full breath. The crowd cheered, a wave of relief and vindication breaking over the street. Marcus stepped between his son and the officer, his broad shoulders a wall. He placed a steady hand on Jordan's cuffed wrist, then turned to Daniels again. "Unlock these, or I'll do it myself and file the obstruction report in the morning." Daniels hesitated, the keys jangling faintly in his grip. He seemed to realize, in that humiliating moment, that the balance of power had flipped entirely. Finally, he fumbled with the cuffs, unlocking them with stiff, jerky motions. The steel clattered as it fell away. Jordan rubbed his sore wrists, swallowing hard. He stood tall, though his body trembled from adrenaline. Marcus kept his hand on his shoulder, grounding him. The agent turned his full attention back to Daniels. His voice was louder now, for everyone to hear. "You just unlawfully detained and assaulted a minor, my minor, and you did it in front of a dozen cameras. Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done?" Daniels stammered, searching for footing. He fit the description. Dark clothing, backpack, late at night. I had reason." "Reason?" Marcus cut in, his tone a blade. "Your reason was prejudice. Your reason was ego. You didn't see a teenager, you saw a target, and you laid your hands on him without cause." The crowd cheered again, voices rising in righteous anger. "That's right!" someone shouted. "We all saw it!" Daniel's face flushed crimson. He shifted on his feet, suddenly very aware that his uniform, his badge, his authority, All of it was paper-thin under the glare of the cameras and the fury of a federal agent. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The calm in his tone was far more dangerous. "You've made the worst mistake of your career tonight, and the whole world will see it by morning." Jordan leaned slightly into his father, relief finally breaking through the fear. Daniel stepped back, his once commanding presence shriveled in the floodlights of justice, outnumbered not by force, but by truth. And for the first time that night, the boy knew he was safe. The steel cuffs clattered to the pavement, the echo sharp against the hum of restless voices. Jordan flexed his wrists, red marks etched into his skin where the metal had bitten. His father's hand stayed steady on his shoulder, a silent promise that he was safe now. Officer Daniels, however, looked anything but steady. Sweat glistened on his brow despite the cool night. The confidence he had carried only minutes earlier, swagger, command, authority, had bled away under the lights of half a dozen cell phone cameras and the cold, unflinching glare of Agent Marcus Mitchell. "You need to understand something," Marcus said, his voice low but carrying across the crowd. "This wasn't just a bad stop. This wasn't just poor judgment. This was unlawful detention, excessive force, and abuse of authority. And you did it in front of witnesses." Daniel's jaw worked as if chewing on excuses that refused to form. He looked like he might have been up to something. I had to be sure. Up to something? Marcus cut him off, his voice sharp. What he was up to was walking home from basketball practice. That's not suspicion. That's not probable cause. That's being a teenager in his own neighborhood. The crowd broke into applause and shouts of agreement. A man near the front called out, "We saw everything. He never resisted." A woman added, "That boy did nothing wrong." Daniel shifted, his eyes flicking nervously to the phones, then back to Marcus. His authority shrank with every voice raised against him. Marcus took a step closer, his presence towering. "And let's be clear. This isn't going away. Those recordings will be in the hands of Internal Affairs by morning. The Bureau will be filing its own report, and I will personally ensure that your actions tonight are reviewed at the highest levels." Daniels opened his mouth, but Marcus pressed on, not giving him air to breathe. "You didn't just attack my son. You attacked the principles you swore to uphold. You mocked his pleas. You dismissed his rights, and you did it so recklessly you never stopped to think who he might be. You assumed you had power, but all you've shown tonight is weakness." The words landed like hammer blows. Daniels' shoulders slumped, the weight of inevitability sinking into him. The crowd, sensing the moment, erupted. Cheers, shouts, voices demanding accountability. Someone yelled, "He's finished!" Another voice added, "Post it online. Let the world see." Phones caught every angle, the FBI badge glinting under the light, the red marks on Jordan's wrists, the look of a man realizing his career had just unraveled. Jordan stood taller now, though his body still trembled from the ordeal. He glanced at his father, who gave his shoulder a firm squeeze. "You okay, son?" Jordan nodded faintly. "Yeah, just glad you came." Marcus turned back to Daniels, his tone final, cold as stone. "You've ended your career tonight, officer. Whether you resign tomorrow or are dragged out of uniform in disgrace, your days with a badge are over, and you have no one to blame but yourself." Daniels' lips parted as if to protest, but the words never came. He knew it. The crowd knew it. The cameras knew it. This was the moment his authority crumbled into dust. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the murmur of neighbors documenting the end of a man's power. Daniels looked smaller now, stripped of the fear he once wielded. Marcus turned to his son. "We're going home." And with that, he guided Jordan gently away from the cruiser, leaving Daniels behind in the wreckage of his own arrogance. The street was still buzzing when Marcus guided Jordan away from the cruiser. Neighbors lingered, some clapping him on the back, others simply shaking their heads in disbelief. The glow of phone screens bobbed in the dark like lanterns, capturing the last moments of an officer who had lost all authority. "Thank you, Mr. Mitchell," one woman called out. Another neighbor muttered, "About time someone put that cop in his place." Marcus nodded to them briefly but kept his focus on his son. Jordan's steps were unsteady, his wrists sore, his pride bruised. But he walked with his father's arm around him, no longer alone under the harsh spotlight. They reached the black sedan, its engine still idling. Marcus opened the passenger door, steadying Jordan as he climbed in. For a long moment, Marcus just stood outside, hands gripping the top of the doorframe, breathing out the storm he had been holding inside. Then he slid into the driver's seat and pulled away, leaving Maple Street and Officer Daniels behind. The ride home was quiet at first, the weight of the night settling between them. Jordan stared at his wrists, the red marks glowing like reminders. Finally, he spoke, voice soft. "Dad, I did what you told me. I kept calm. I didn't fight back, but it didn't matter. His voice cracked, and he stopped. Marcus glanced at him, eyes heavy with both sorrow and pride. You did everything right, son. Everything. And that's the reason you're sitting here with me right now." Jordan swallowed hard, blinking fast. It felt like nothing I did mattered. "It always matters," Marcus said firmly. "Because when the world refuses to see your worth, you have to carry it yourself. And you did. You stood tall, even when he tried to tear you down." Jordan leaned back against the seat, the words sinking in. His chest loosened, just slightly. When they pulled into the driveway, Melissa was already at the door, porch light spilling over her. She rushed to them as soon as the car stopped, her face etched with worry. "Oh my God, Jordan, what happened?" Jordan barely had time to answer before she pulled him into her arms. He held her tightly, the dam of composure finally cracking as a tear slid down his cheek. Marcus stepped up beside them, his hand resting on both their shoulders. "He's safe. That's what matters. We'll talk inside." They went in together. The kitchen smelled faintly of tacos, the dinner that had waited too long. Melissa sat Jordan at the table, fussing over his wrists, muttering about ice packs and bandages. Marcus watched them, the adrenaline of the night slowly ebbing away, leaving behind a heavy resolve. Later, after Jordan had showered and Melissa had finally relaxed enough to breathe, Marcus sat with his son in the living room. The house was quiet now, the kind of quiet that felt safe. "You know," Marcus said, his voice softer than usual, "when I joined the Bureau, I promised myself I'd protect people from threats they couldn't see. But tonight, the threat wasn't foreign. It wasn't hidden. It was right there on our street." Jordan nodded slowly. "I get it now. Why you always told me to be careful." Marcus reached over, squeezing his shoulder. "You shouldn't have to be careful just to walk home. But until the world changes, I need you to remember what you did tonight. Staying calm. Staying alive. That's strength." Jordan looked at him, eyes tired but steady. "Thanks for coming, Dad." "Always," Marcus said. The night ended not with triumph, but with a quiet understanding. Justice wasn't a single moment. It was a fight. And for the Mitchell family, that fight would never be ignored again. What would you have done if you saw a teenager being attacked like this in your own neighborhood? And do you think the officer would have faced the same consequences if Jordan's father hadn't been FBI? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all. If this story gripped you, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. Share this video with friends and family. It helps the channel grow and spreads these stories further. Right now, you'll see other videos appearing on your screen. Go watch them next. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new story.